There you go.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last technical committee meeting of the year. Members, please turn your cameras on during the roll call and also for all voting items. This meeting is being recorded. If anyone should experience difficulties during the meeting, please send a message to the chat box. At this time, Rebecca will start the roll call to determine member participation. Rebecca?
Good morning. City of Annapolis,
Present.
thank you. Anne Arundel County,
Here.
Baltimore City, excuse me. Baltimore County,
Here.
Carroll County, Harford County,
Good morning. Harford County's here.
good morning. Howard County,
Howard County here.
thank you. Queen Anne's County,
Good morning, Queen Anne's County here.
good morning. MDOT,
Here.
thank you. MDE,
Here.
MDP, MDOT MTA,
Present.
thank you. And MDOT SHA,
Just joining.
I'm sorry.
He's just joining.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rebecca. Our first item is approval of the minutes from the technical committee meeting in November. Have members had a chance to review the minutes? Can I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
MDOT, a motion to approve.
Thank you, Dan from MDOT.
Harford County will second.
Thank you, Harford County. We will now vote on approval of the minutes. When your name is read, please indicate aye or nay. Rebecca, please read down the list of members.
Annapolis,
Aye.
Anne Arundel County,
Aye.
Baltimore City,
Aye.
Baltimore County,
Aye.
Carroll County, Harford County,
Aye.
Howard County,
Aye.
Queen Anne's. Is there a vote from Queen Anne's County for the minutes?
Aye, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
And MDOT?
Aye.
Thanks.
The November minutes are approved. We will now consider Resolution 26-14, which is a request to amend the TIP for the new Baltimore County project. Mr. Keith Kuchark will introduce the resolution. Keith?
Good morning. Thank you, Angie. As mentioned, Resolution 26-14, Baltimore County is requesting to add one new project to the FY 26 to 29 TIP. Yeah, Carroll Road Bridge over Carroll Branch will replace the existing single-lane bridge that collapsed in October with a new two-lane bridge, and that matches the two-lane bridge approaches on either side of the bridge. Baltimore County has applied for Highway Infrastructure Program funding and is anticipating a response from SHA shortly, but they haven't received it yet. The ICG has reviewed and determined this project to be not exempt due to the bridge widening, but because there's no capacity improvements, no conformity analysis is required. So we are seeking conditional approval pending SHA's determination of the eligibility for 100% funding for this. And Mr. Nick Smith from Baltimore County will provide the details of the project. Nick, if you're here.
Was in the meeting. Let me check and see if it's just voice.
If not, I can do it, I guess.
Todd, can you see on the participants if he's there and it's just a question of being muted?
I don't see him on there.
Huh, he was on previously. Okay, why don't you continue then, please, Keith?
Sure. So this bridge was built in 1879. It was recently damaged by a falling tree that led to the collapse when an oil truck rode over it and it fell. With the bridge being closed, it results in roughly an 8-mile detour to get around that bridge. Next slide. So the county is requesting funds for the bridge. The total cost of the bridge is $4.675 million. And as I mentioned in my introduction, they have applied for Highway Infrastructure Program funding, and they are anticipating getting a response from SHA in the next couple days. And that funding would cover 100% of the cost to replace. If for some reason that doesn't go through, and they did get a preliminary word from SHA that everything looks pretty good for getting that funding, but it hasn't actually been approved yet. But if it doesn't get approved, then we won't be sending this to the BRTB for them to approve the resolution. So next slide. So this is just a timeline looking at design being completed in 2027 and 2028, right-of-way acquisition through 2029, and construction being completed in 2031. And I guess Nick Smith would be your contact if you have any questions. In the meantime, I can try to answer anything if there are any questions.
All right, thank you, Keith. I now ask for a member to approve the resolution 26-14, and then the second.
Baltimore City approves.
Thank you, Baltimore City.
Harford County will second.
Thank you, Sam from Harford County. Do any technical members have any questions or comments on this resolution? We now ask if members of the public have any questions or comments on the resolution. If so, please indicate you would like to comment in the chat box. Regina, do you see anything?
There's none at this time.
Thank you. We will now vote on approval of the resolution to amend the TIP for this bridge project. When your name is read, please indicate aye or nay. Please read down the list of members. Rebecca?
Annapolis,
Aye.
Anne Arundel County,
Aye.
Baltimore City,
Aye.
Baltimore County,
Aye.
Carroll County,
Aye.
Harford County,
Aye.
Howard County,
Aye.
Queen Anne's County,
Aye.
and MDOT.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. We will now consider Resolution 26-15, which is to amend the TIP for 2 SHA projects. Keith will introduce the resolution. Keith?
Okay, thank you again. In Resolution 26-15, SHA is requesting to amend the 26-29 TIP to add one project that was previously included in the TIP but wasn't included last year, and then one new project. The older project that they're putting back in is the Maryland 214 project from Maryland 468 to Camp Letts Road, and we'll be adding state funds for engineering and federal and state funds for right-of-way and utility relocations. The ICG has reviewed this amendment and determined that this project is not exempt as it was previously designated. However, since the project remained in the long-range plan and it has been accounted for in the modeling data, there's no additional modeling needed for this, or any need for any public comment. The second project is the South Entrance Trail. This is a new earmark project that is adding $3.9 million in federal funding and matching funds for construction of a multi-use pathway in Howard County. Again, the ICG has reviewed this project as well and determined it to be exempt according to the conformity rule. And Mr. Joe Lombardo from SHA will present the details of both of these projects. So thanks, Joe.
Great. Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it. All right. Keith, you want to bring up the slides, please?
You weren't seeing these?
It should be on the screen, Joe.
Oh, okay. All right. I have a different setup here. Okay. So yeah, for Maryland 214. So again, just to reiterate what Keith had said, it's the project is to add funding for Maryland 214, MD 468 at Camp Lutz Road in the FY 26-29 tip, and the amendment adds new funding to the design right-of-way utilities phases of the project. If we go to the next slide.
Yes.
The project adds travel lanes each direction, so from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. There's also going to be a shared use path along MD 214, as well as a roundabout at Lock Haven Road. Additional improvements, including intersection improvements at MD 468 at Lock Haven, culvert replacement, stream relocation, guardrail upgrades, drainage improvements, stormwater management, traffic signs, pavement markings, lighting, and landscaping. And so if we go to the next slide, just to break down some of the financials here. So again, this is funding that's going to be through NHPP, which is an 80-20 split between federal and local match. The P is entirely funded by the county at $1,816,000. The right-of-way is a total of $3,000,045. And that's a divide between $2.7 million for the federal and then $749 for the local match. For utilities, that would be a total of $1.63 million, and again that breaks down to $1.28 million for federal and $355,000 for local. And yeah, that's it for this one. For Howard County, excuse me.
Well, Joe, why don't we wait a minute? I think I went too fast. Let's
Sure.
see if there's any. Angie's probably going to ask for comments or questions from members.
Yeah, no problem.
Does anyone have any questions regarding what Joe just presented? I now ask for a member to move for approval of Resolution 26-15 and then a second.
Anne Arundel County will move for approval.
Thank you, Brian.
Annapolis
second?
seconds.
Thank you, Kwaku. We now ask if members of the public have any questions or comments.
I do not see
Regina?
anything in the chat box.
Thank you. We will now vote on approval of the resolution to amend the tip for 2 SHA projects. Where your name is read, please indicate aye or nay. Rebecca, can you please read down the list of members?
Annapolis,
Aye.
Anne Arundel County,
Aye.
Baltimore City,
Aye.
Baltimore County,
Aye.
Carroll County,
Aye.
Harford County,
Aye.
Howard County,
Aye.
Queen Anne's County,
Aye.
and MDOT.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. The resolution has passed. We will now consider Resolution 26-16 to amend the tip for 1 MTA project. Keith, can you introduce the resolution?
Angie, I messed up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
SHA, that's what SHA had 2 amendments to present.
Okay.
So Joe will continue with the south entrance trail before we go to 16.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, yeah. So in Howard County, this is the South Entrance Trail. It's an earmark for the 26-29 tip. This amendment adds new funding to the construction phase of the project. Engineering was funded previously through 2 separate bikeway awards and matching county funds in 2015 and 2018 to Howard County. So if we proceed, the next slide, this includes construction of a multi-use path from South Entrance Road to Brooklyn Land Parkway, Stevens Forest Road. And the project also ensures safety for bicyclists and pedestrian travel. And so again, the financials on the next slide. This is available through the HIP or Highway Improvement Program, which also is an 80-20 split. The construction total is $3.9 million. So the breakout there is $3 million for federal and $900,000 for the local. And that's it.
Thank you, Joe.
Sure.
Are there any questions regarding this project? I now ask for a member to approve this second portion of the resolution 26-15, and then a second.
Hartford County will make the motion.
Thank you, Sam, Hartford County.
Baltimore City seconds.
Thank you, Sean, Baltimore City. We now ask if members of the public or any tech committee members have any questions.
There's nothing in the chat box.
Thank you. We will now vote on approval of the second portion of the resolution to amend the tip for the 2 SHA projects. Rebecca, can you please read down the list of members?
Aye. I'm sorry, bear with me just 1 second, please. Annapolis,
Aye.
Anne Arundel County,
Aye.
Baltimore City,
Aye.
Baltimore County,
Aye.
Carroll County,
Aye.
Hartford County,
Aye.
Howard County,
Aye.
Queen Anne's,
Aye.
and MDOT.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Now the full resolution has passed. Now we move on to resolution 26-16 to request to amend the tip for 1 MTA project. Keith, can you please introduce the resolution?
Sure can. In resolution 26-16, MDOT MTA is requesting to amend one project in the 26 to 29 tip. The Reisterstown Plaza Metro Station multimodal access project is a preliminary in design and environmental study for the metro station. And the project will include complete streets and accessibility improvements. The ICG has reviewed this project as well and has determined this project to be exempt according to the conformity rule. And Mr. Albert Engel from MTA will present the details. Thanks, Albert.
Thank you, Keith. So just a little bit of background here. So in 2024, MDOT and MTA produced a station area COD vision plan for the Reisterstown Plaza Station, which specifically called for station area access and transit improvements, which included upgrades to sort of the connections to the station, transit enhancements, mobility hub, shared use paths, and then also complete streets and accessibility improvements for pedestrians, wheelchair users, to get them from the station to areas around the station. Next slide. And so what this project is for is preliminary design and environmental study for the infrastructure elements of the TOD vision plan. So that's, includes those complete streets, accessibility improvements, and some of the other transit aspects of the project. So specifically looking at identifying safety and accessibility improvements at and around the Reisterstown Plaza Metro Station, and this will support TOD activities, encourage mode shift transit, and increase transit ridership overall. So specifically, this amendment will add the project into the 26 to 29 tip. This was amended into a previous tip, but the grant funding did not get executed in 2025 as we had anticipated. So this will now be added in as a 2026 project, and do so shift the 4.691 million of raised discretionary grant funding for planning to fiscal 26, which is the correct year of obligation. And that is the total cost of the project. So these are this is a 100% federal, so there's no state funding either way. So the total is that 4.691 million. That's all sort of the new project for this funding type. That's it. Any questions? Happy to answer.
Thank you, Albert. I now ask for a member to move for the approval of resolution 26-16 and then a second.
Baltimore City moves.
Thank you, Sean. Baltimore City.
And Queen Anne's County will second.
Thank you, Steve. Queen Anne's County. Do any technical members have any questions or comments on this resolution? Any members of the public have any questions or comments? Regina?
I do not see anything in the chat box.
Thank you. We will now vote on approval of the resolution to amend the TIP for this MTA project. Where your name is read, please indicate aye or nay. Rebecca, can you please read down the list of members?
Yes, Annapolis,
Aye.
Anne Arundel County,
Aye.
Baltimore City,
Aye.
Baltimore County,
Aye.
Carroll County,
Aye.
Harford County,
Aye.
Howard County,
Aye.
Queen Anne's,
Aye.
and MDOT.
Aye.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Albert. We will now consider Resolution 26-17 to amend the TIP for One Baltimore City project. Keith, can you introduce the resolution?
And thank you again. In Resolution 26-17, Baltimore City is requesting to amend one existing project in the 26 to 29 TIP. The Monroe Street ramp over CSX Railroad and Russell Street over CSX will replace both bridges that are currently carrying a poor rating. The ICG has reviewed and determined this project to be not exempt, as was previously designated. However, since the project was modeled for the current TIP and no scope changes have been made, they determined that no new modeling or public review is required for this project. And Mr. Scott Weaver from Baltimore City will provide the details of the project. Scott?
Good morning. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, obviously, two bridges in close proximity. The one, 5221, the ramp bridge, actually receives traffic from both Monroe Street and I-95 South. It's the bridge over that carries the traffic from the I-95 ramp onto 295 South. And the 5103 is the Russell Street Bridge, which is a mainline bridge for Russell Street. Russell Street being one of the premier roads into and out of Baltimore City. I mean, it connects Oriole Park, Camden Yards, M&T Bank Stadium, and the Horseshoe Casino, plus Shock Trauma and everything else downtown. So this is a major project for us. Both bridges, as Keith alluded to, are in poor condition. They're over 50 years old. Over CSX project, we've had drainage problems out there. The roadway geometry is suboptimal. We have regular occurrences of trucks overtopping, or should I say rolling over. They'll come off the ramp to I-95 South, and because of the geometry, they hit that ramp and the turn's too sharp for them. And we have commercial vehicles that will actually, in one instance, went over the bridge and down onto the train tracks. So part of this project is we're going to change that alignment so that stops happening and everybody can get home safely. Bridges are in poor condition, as I said before. We've had to have a contractor perform multiple repairs out there. It's been a slow going process as we've been working with CSX, which sometimes can be good and sometimes can be bad. But we've managed to work it out. The pavements beyond the bridges are going to be constructed slightly beyond the bridges. The Baltimore City has another project that's going to take care of the be it from our project limits all the way to the city line. But I mean, to keep in mind, the bridge carrying Russell Street carries approximately 46,000 vehicles a day. So they're fairly heavily traveled. There's going to be no change in vertical. It's basically a replacing kind. We are going to do phased construction because obviously we cannot close Russell Street. And it's going to, obviously replace these interior structures. As you can see from the project information, final design is going to be complete in early next year. Construction hopefully start in 2027. 2.5 years for construction. Bridges will meet the 75-year design life. Wider shoulders, better comfort. larger barriers. They'll meet the 42-inch barrier requirement. Tony Grant's actually my project manager for it, so he can answer any questions anybody might have. But one of the main reasons we're doing the tip amendment is we have to really get this project on the road. There's a federal earmark for $1 million to cover $1 million of the cost of the project. We had to have it basically submitted to SHA by the end of September, and we did that. But we really need to get this job out the road, out the door and on the street, because if we don't advertise it by September of next year, we lose that $1 million. And this is a $30 million job, so it's a big deal.
Thank you, Scott. I now ask for a member to move for approval of Resolution 26-17 and then a second.
Queen Anne's County will make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Steve. Queen Anne's?
MDOT will second that.
Thank you, Dan.
Mhm.
Do any technical committee members have any questions or comments on the resolution? Are there any questions in the chat box from the public?
No one has entered anything, no.
Thank you. We will now vote on the approval of the resolution to amend the TIP for this Baltimore City project. Where your name is read, please indicate aye or nay. Rebecca, can you read down the list of members?
Sure. Annapolis,
Aye.
Anne Arundel County,
Aye.
Baltimore City,
Aye.
Baltimore County,
Aye.
Carroll County,
Aye.
Harford County,
Aye.
Howard County,
Aye.
Queen Anne's County,
Aye.
and MDOT.
Aye.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Rebecca. The resolution has passed. Mr. Kyle Herring of Foursquare will now provide an update on work to create an active transportation project scoring methodology for use in the long-range transportation plan. Kyle?
Awesome. Thank you very much for having us. We're very excited to share the progress that we've made over the last 4 months and look forward to any feedback that you all have. So first, we will discuss what we've done in terms of interviewing peers and engaging with the steering committee. We'll briefly recap how roadway and transit projects were scored in Resilience 2050, and then discuss the work that we've done to incorporate standalone active transportation projects in the next long-range transportation plan. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to my colleague Jim to discuss what we heard through the peer finding and steering committee engagement process.
Hi all, I'm Jim Elliott from Tool Design, and as Zach said, I'm going to share what we learned from the peer review process and from the steering committee. Just to take a step back, this project has focused on a set of policy questions that were included in the RFP and that we provided some input on and brought to the steering committee about how BMC, BRTB should proceed with integrating active transportation projects into the long-range transportation plan. So this was the focus of discussions with BMC, with the steering committee, and with the peer communities, which are listed here. There were 6 of them that we interviewed: the Atlanta Regional Commission, the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, that's the Austin Area MPO, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, which is the Philadelphia Area MPO, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, which is the Columbus Area MPO, the North Central Texas Council of Governments, which is the Dallas Area MPO. So we interviewed these in part because of their success at implementing active transportation projects, to understand how they had addressed these key policy questions. We interviewed them based on a standard set of questions that we asked each MPO, and those interviews lasted about an hour each. So one of the most important questions for us was, and for BMC and BRTB, was whether or not to compare active transportation projects to highway and transit projects. So this is something that we explored with the peer communities, and what we found was that about half of them did compare active transportation projects directly, and half did not. There are some little wrinkles in there. DVRPC had a kind of hybrid process, but that's generally how things broke out. No clear preference, and really it seemed to depend on a variety of factors, including the size of the MPO, which affects how many projects need to be reviewed, the capacity of the staff, which of course affects the ability to review active transportation projects, the types of projects that were being considered. For example, if the types were relatively small, small projects, sidewalk projects, for example, difficult to compare those to larger highway and transit projects, and a host of other kind of considerations that were particular to the MPO itself. Next slide. Another key question that we asked the peers about was what types of projects did they include, whether there were any limitations on that. There were some particular questions that BMC wanted us to explore. One of those was whether or not the peers had would include pedestrian-only projects, and generally what we found was that they do. There was one exception to that. DRCOG, the Denver area MPO, wasn't aware of any pedestrian exclusive projects that were included. In their LRTP, they have a separate line item that addresses sidewalk gaps. But generally we found that sidewalk projects, there was no limitation on including pedestrian-only projects. Most do not require any kind of minimum cost threshold for projects. There were a range of costs that were included. The exception to that was DVRPC. They have a minimum cost threshold of $40 million. And the reason for this is their staff capacity partly, and wanting to limit the projects that they review to the most impactful projects. So they set this limitation. And there are a variety of additional limitations that were imposed on projects. One of the key ones being that they had to have a transportation purpose, and another one being they had to be included in a regional plan of some kind, or local or regional plan. Next slide. So this is some of the feedback that we received from the steering committee when we presented this, and we talked about the policy questions. There was a kind of general feeling that BMC and BRTB ought to be comparing active transportation projects to highway and transit projects. That was generally a good idea, but also that BMC and BRTB should limit the types of projects that are considered in some way, so that we're focusing on projects that address regional needs of some kind, such as addressing a major barrier in the active transportation network, such as a bridge or a river or something like that, serving a regional transit station of some kind, connecting to the network, or being included in some kind of regional plan. So these are some of the things that we discussed. They were generally supportive of the idea of bundling active transportation projects so that they were of similar scale to highway and transit projects and could be more easily compared. They supported the idea of reallocating some of the points in the current methodology that are assigned to security, which is focused on evacuation routes, to the safety criterion. they also supported the idea of looking at ways to try to reconsider the how access is considered in the case of active transportation, pointing out that access to jobs may not be the best metric for active transportation, since most jobs are beyond, for most people, are beyond walking and biking distance, and the most active transportation trips are for other purposes. And then there were a variety of other considerations that we discussed, including the level of effort that would be needed for BMC staff to evaluate the criteria, and the impact of the scoring complexity and on transparency. So the more complex the scoring methodology is, the more opaque it is also. So those were some of the key takeaways from the steering committee.
Thanks, Jim. And I think if anyone has any questions on how peers are handling this or the steering committee feedback, we can pause here for a couple moments. If not, we will continue on and talk about how we're thinking about approaching this for BRTB. All right. So central to this is kind of understanding how this fits in with the existing roadway and transit project scoring framework. So we went back to the Resilience 2050 approach and looked at kind of the policy score and the technical score. So you're all probably familiar, but just a quick recap. The policy score gives each project sponsor the ability to assign priority to their submitted projects. Up to 5 receive 30 points, 4 20 points, and the rest receive 10 points. Demonstrated funding support is worth another 10 points. And I just want to note here, while we're on the topic of the policy score, that we're going to spend a good bit of time presenting at a high level the work that we've done to develop a technical scoring approach for active transportation. But something we'd welcome your feedback on is the approach to incorporating active transportation projects into that policy score. So we understand that there's a desire to directly compare across modes, but there's some questions as to how active transportation projects would fare through this policy scoring phase specifically. Within the technical scoring framework, projects are scored on their consistency with criteria related to BRTB's regional goals and strategy. So criteria and potential points vary across goals, and at a really high level, here's kind of how they're evaluated. So critically, points are how goals are weighted, and in some cases, different project types are eligible for more points. So transit projects can receive more accessibility points than roadway projects, and we've assigned or recommended assigning the same number of potential projects to active transportation as transit, and we'll kind of show how that breaks down at the very end. At a high level, accessibility is measuring the degree to which projects support complete streets, improve access to jobs, and benefit vulnerable populations. Safety looks at how a project improves safety for all users and benefits vulnerable populations. And mobility is going to measure the degree to which a project is expected to increase how far someone can go in a given amount of time. For roadway projects, we're looking at vehicle hours of delay, and for transit projects, we're looking at access and connectivity measures. Environmental conservation scores projects on the degree to which they reduce emissions, as well as their expected impact on ecologically sensitive and culturally significant lands, as well as the relationship to vulnerable populations. Security looks at the degree to which a project enhances multimodal evacuation for everyone, but in particular vulnerable populations. And then economic prosperity evaluates projects based on whether or not they support existing programs to revitalize and improve communities based on opportunity zones, sustainable communities, and priority funding areas. So before we jump into some draft measures for active transportation, we just wanted to briefly recap how this played out in Resilience 2050. So in total, 37% of projects submitted were transit. 87% of projects were related to expansion, and then 94% of all projects submitted were included in the preferred alternative. 6 roadway expansion projects were excluded, but this is primarily due to cost, not based on score. The median score for all included projects was 57, with scores ranging from 34.5 to 78 for those included and 29 to 41 for those excluded. In thinking about incorporating standalone active transportation projects, some considerations. The policy score, we've discussed the fact that sponsors may be unlikely to assign a high priority to active transportation projects, the extent to which this could be problematic, and then potential solutions. So, for example, allowing one additional high priority active transportation project. Something else to keep in mind as we talk through scoring metrics is that in many cases, roadway and transit criteria use a quantile classification scheme that ranks projects against one another. So, for example, roadway projects award accessibility points based on the estimated increase in number of jobs accessible within 30 minutes. The top third of projects receive 4 points, the middle third receive 2, and the bottom third receive no points. So to the extent we use that approach to classifying projects, we're limiting the number of active transportation projects eligible for the highest score with respect to that measure. At the same time, if we move away from this scheme, we could be unfairly advantaging active transportation projects relative to roadway and transit projects. This kind of ties into the policy score where we might not expect active transportation projects to fare as well. But this is specifically relating to how measures related to those VRTB goals are scored. So on the following slides, I'm going to share the details of the draft scoring framework, but in the interest of time, avoid spending too much time digging into any of those. So please let us know if you have any questions either along the way or after you've had time to digest. So with that, we will jump into it. So thinking about accessibility or the degree to which a project supports complete streets, improves access to jobs, and benefits vulnerable populations. One thing that we're looking at for active transportation projects is the overlap with short trip opportunity areas. So these are areas that MDOT has identified as having a higher short trip potential based on population density, employment density, zero-car households, transit coverage, and school coverage. So the benefit of leveraging short trip opportunity measures to score projects is that it focuses investments in the areas active transportation is most likely based on a number of factors. Through conversations with the steering committee and our review of peer practices, we found that inclusion in a regional plan is really important in developing that cohesive network. So this is a binary determination, which is going to help select projects and prioritize projects that are going to create that contiguous network. The steering committee also emphasized the importance of projects that address an existing barrier. So to the degree that a project closes the most challenging gaps in the region, it will receive additional points. In thinking about mobility measures, which for roadway and transit projects refer to the degree to which a project increases how far someone can go in a given amount of time. We've chosen preliminarily population and employment density. This is going to prioritize projects most likely to create the most connections, with jobs acting as somewhat of a proxy for activity centers. This measure also facilitates bundling of projects without scoring distortion as it's relative to the entire scope of the project. And I just want to note that through conversations with the steering committee, we decided it's important to include this as well as STOAs, or short trip opportunity areas, which also incorporate population and employment density, because of how important density is to the value of active transportation for transportation as opposed to recreational trips. We also recommend measuring their connection to transit. So similar to how transit projects are measured, but inverted to focus on the active transportation connection to transit, not the transit connection to active transportation. This will score projects more highly when they connect with transit and even higher when they connect with high high quality transit. Something we heard from the steering committee throughout the process is the importance of prioritizing projects based on safety. So here again, we've identified a geography identified and maintained by MDOT as a potential measure, specifically areas of need. These geographies help prioritize active transportation projects in the areas identified as highest need for active transportation safety improvements based on public input, crash density, community factors, and short trip opportunity areas. So similar to short trip opportunity areas, this is a comprehensive measure that incorporates a number of factors to help prioritize safety interventions. There's a couple other measures related to safety, specifically the frequency of nearby active transportation crashes. So this is going to prioritize projects that invest in the areas with the most active transportation crashes. And then something we heard from the steering committee was an interest in a measure that gets at the qualitative factors associated with this active transportation infrastructure. So we've got a measure that prioritizes projects that create infrastructure expected to be safe and comfortable for people of all ages and abilities. So roadway and transit projects score or measure environmental conservation based on the degree to which a project reduces emissions and expected effect on ecologically sensitive lands and culturally significant resources, as well as the relationship to vulnerable populations, which is a little bit abstracted when we talk about active transportation projects, because some of these actually benefit these issues. Specifically, we heard from the steering committee that looking at health outcomes might be appropriate for rating active transportation projects on this measure. So we've identified health outcomes associated with inactivity, and projects would be prioritized based on the degree to which they intersect with areas that rate poorly on these measures relative to the rest of the region. So this is going to address the intent of the roadway and transit conservation metrics, which aim to limit projects in areas where health outcomes reflect the burden of infrastructure that pollutes and limits activity. So this deliberately seeks to promote opportunities for safe and comfortable active transportation in these historically burdened communities. The steering committee also emphasized the importance of connections to parks and green space. So the Bikeable Baltimore Region Plan identified regionally significant parks, and we recommend scoring projects based on the degree to which they connect transit and residential areas with those parks. This is going to emphasize the value of access to green space, and particularly in those cases where we're creating new or improving connections between where people live and transit. So again, these are somewhat abstracted from the roadway and transit measures for environmental conservation, which aim to reduce emissions and the impact on ecologically sensitive lands and culturally significant resources. But this is, again, because active transportation infrastructure can actually address some of the externalities associated with roadway and transit projects. So the final goal that we've recommended scoring measures for is economic prosperity. So this is actually going to match exactly the measure used for roadway and transit projects, which evaluates the project's relationship to opportunity zones, sustainable communities, and priority funding areas. So when we pull all this together, here's what these active transportation point allocation looks like relative to roadway and transit projects. So relative to other projects, specifically roadway projects, both transit and active transportation are eligible for 5 more accessibility points. And for active transportation projects, the security points were reallocated to safety based on steering committee feedback. That results in 55 total possible points for transit and active transportation, and 50 total possible points for roadway projects. Getting back to the question of absolute versus relative scoring, roadway projects include 15 relative points, transit 20, and active transportation 10. So in terms of next steps, we're going to, hopefully with feedback from you all in the steering committee, finalize the scoring framework, develop the final scoring frameworks and share that back with you all, create a policy or project submission form, and then propose supporting policy recommendations. So with that, we're curious to hear if anyone has any questions. Questions for you all include how should policy scores incorporate active transportation projects, and do propose active transportation project scoring metrics and framework effectively further BRTB goals? Daniel?
Hi, thanks so much for the presentation. This is Daniel Pascal with the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and yeah, been following some of the active transportation planning efforts in the region, especially with long distance trails like the Greenway, but also local connections with the Bikeable Baltimore region and the statewide trails plan. Was curious about how, if at all, the projects might include filling gaps in the level of traffic stress network, specifically for biking. I know that the state did a statewide analysis where you assess some roads to be really high stress and some to be lower or medium. And you can see islands that form of, if you're only comfortable biking on, low traffic roads or separated paths, you can only go into these islands. Is there a metric that kind of looks at those connections that can kind of unite a lot of those islands?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time evaluating whether we can use that statewide level of traffic stress network, and BMC actually kind of builds off that and has even more detail than the state. The trick for us and why ultimately we move for or kind of move towards a more qualitative evaluation of continuity and widths was that the LTS is so bicycle focused, and the state doesn't have a complementary pedestrian level of comfort scoring approach at this time. One potential workaround that we considered was trying to kind of collect the little bits and pieces that we would need to do some sort of rudimentary LTS and pedestrian level of comfort scoring. But something I guess we didn't really touch on in this presentation that we've heard from folks throughout the process, both from the peers and the steering committee, is like, make sure this is as simple as possible. And when we started trying to pull together what we need for even kind of a rudimentary stress evaluation, it just seemed like we were getting too far afield of that guidance to keep things simple. Totally see the value in that. But it's been something that has proven very difficult to incorporate in this.
Gotcha. Thank you. Can I also ask a real quick follow-up? Does this look at how existing road projects that are on the tip or, future plans or long-range plans could include or add on new bike and pedestrian components or, paths or bikeways and sidewalks?
This does not, because those projects are scored on the degree to which they promote complete streets, kind of independent of this. So the roadway and transit scoring framework is remaining the same. And this will just be an add-on for the standalone active transportation projects unrelated to any roadway or transit project.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, thank you so much, Kyle.
Thanks.
Now we will have UPWP updates. Mr. Tim Briggs will provide an update on the progress with development of the Coordinated Human Service Transportation Plan. Tim?
Hi, thank you, Angelica. My name is Tim Briggs, and I'm the transit planner at PMC. And I'll let Regina load the slides. But as you mentioned, I'm going to give a brief update on the progress of the current update to the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan for the Baltimore area. So what is the purpose of this plan? So it's to identify the transportation needs of individuals with disabilities, older adults, and people with low incomes, develop strategies to meet the needs, and then create a prioritization plan. Federal transit law requires that projects that are funded under their 5310 program, which is the enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities, that the projects be included in a locally developed coordinated plan. And so this is the process by which M.MTA is meeting that requirement. Just what's the outcome or the impact? So in the last funding cycle, FY 26-27, $11.1 million was awarded through the 5310 program to nonprofit agencies. And all of those awards had to be consistent with the plan. The outreach for the plan is another part of the requirements of the process. And BMC and M.MTA have coordinated throughout the planning process to make sure that we include participation by seniors, individuals with disabilities, representatives of public, private, and nonprofit transportation providers. For the existing condition, the outreach is sort of divided into the separate parts of the plan, starting with existing services and transportation needs, then moving on to potential strategies, and then finally implementation. So as you can see, we've held several workshops for each part of the plan, including in-person and virtual workshops. Currently, the team has shared the transportation needs as a draft for the Baltimore area. And so I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about what has been identified thus far. There are four overarching categories of the needs. The first is for expanded transportation services. So some of the areas that were highlighted in the discussion are obviously trips throughout the day, so outside of like the 9 to 5 or the common peak hours. Medical trips, specifically trips to dialysis centers, were highlighted as a need and a challenge for senior populations, as well as more specialized transportation options such as Uber Wave, which is a Uber for that's compatible with people who use like a power wheelchair. The next category is improved and expanded outreach, marketing, and education. So some of the basic idea here is that we have a lot of transportation services that are available, both public and private. And how do we better connect users to those resources and programs? One topic that came up in discussion was ways to expand travel training to allow, specifically folks with disabilities to use the current transportation system through, kind of extended practice and things like that. Affordability is a big word of the moment in our lives, our economy. So that was something that came up in the discussion as well. Specifically, sort of the lack of affordability of some specialized transportation trips in the private sector. Oftentimes they're a provider of last resort, and some of their fees reflect that. Another way to even make this transportation service not necessarily even more affordable, but also just easier to use is streamlining the application process for transportation programs to make it easier to travel across jurisdictional boundaries. Lastly, there was a discussion of coordination and connectivity. This includes first mile and last mile services. So we talked about exploring ways to implement on-demand microtransit. I know that's something that the board has previously studied, and just identify more ways that allow customers to access trips through improved technology. So the plan is currently in process, and they are welcoming comments on the project webpage. If you have any further questions, please reach out to me, and I can direct you how to get in touch with the project team at m.mta.
Thank you, Tim. Now we will have Mr. Todd Lang lead a discussion on upcoming UPW focus areas. Todd?
Great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. While Regina is pulling up the slide program, just like to remind everyone we are 5 months into fiscal year 2026. So we're currently trying to get all of the projects that were identified in the 2026 program out into the street, hopefully get them done by the time we start rolling into the next fiscal year, which will be July 1st. So next slide, please. So just want to remind everyone about kind of the timing for our planning budget, or Unified Planning Work Program. That's the official federal name, but we're trying to make it a little bit more user-friendly by calling it the planning budget. We normally start discussing some potential topics here in late 2025. This follows the trip to the AMPO annual conference, where I know a lot of technical committee members went, hopefully seeing some projects that are being done in other regions, thinking these might be worthwhile to do here in the Baltimore region. So over the next couple of months, we're going to be going through some potential topics leading up to the February technical committee meeting, where we're going to ask the committee to adopt at least a draft 2027 planning budget that will then go out for a 30-day public comment period. Then in April, it'll come back to the technical committee after we received all public comments and comments from our members, and we will approve it at the April 24th joint in-person elected officials meeting at BRTB. We then submit it to our federal partners, and the money becomes available July 1st, 2026. Next slide, please. So I'm going to break this up into 2 different categories, and I'm actually going to start at the bottom of the slide. There's a number of projects that have been going on for the past couple of years that we think are fairly successful and might be worth continuing based upon recommendations from the technical committee, what your thoughts are. These are all listed in alphabetical order. So again, there's no kind of pre-sorting of all these additional items. So we will be asking for your thoughts on these different items over the next couple of months. So there's the potential for continuation of funding for several different projects. There was recently, last month, a presentation on the Signal Infrastructure Assessment Project. With that, there was a pilot program where there were signal inspections. We could continue additional signal inspections in the region. There's 2,600 signals. So it will take us a number of years to actually get through all of them, but we could set aside some funding and keep going through signal inspections of the most critical intersections in the region. The LOTS skills and technology support, this is our continuation of our partnership with the Transportation Association of Maryland, supporting a lot of their training activities, both at their annual conference and then throughout the year. Then there's the Transportation and Land Use Connection grants. We've heard some good feedback from our local jurisdictions and agencies on these projects that kind of get projects moving and hopefully get them into the pipeline for future construction. There's the Transportation Planning Institute, which is in conjunction with the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or AMPO. It's the online training program. I understand there's a couple of courses that are being developed and hopefully will get rolled out here soon. And then a continuation of updating local bicycle and pedestrian plans per the adoption of the Bikeable Baltimore Region project. Again, this is to try to help facilitate kind of updates of these plans, some which are kind of on schedule for adoption anyway. Then moving up to the top, we've got a number of different suggestions from both committee members, different BRTB subcommittees, and then staff who have kind of put forward some potential ideas. We'd like to run those by you right now and start asking for feedback on these projects that have been potentially identified, but then also for other potential projects that you might think would be worthwhile to do at the regional level. So there's been a lot of discussion about ADA training for local staff. We think that that might be a good regional effort that we could pull together, including some work with ADA immersive experience with disabled representatives, kind of showing how they use the transportation system. Then there's as we mentioned, the Baltimore Bikeable Region follow-up. There are a number of different items that were identified as part of the BBR to continue the progress that has been made, including potentially the development of uniform design standards and consistency checklists, and then the idea of preliminary design of some of the high priority BBR network segments. There is potential for a BRT readiness project where we could look at the different types of service, whether or not it's center running, mixed traffic, dedicated lanes, and see what types of roadways would be most applicable for those types of service. Again, there's BRT being initiated in the state of Maryland, down in Montgomery County and Howard County. And we think that this might be a good template to start looking at potential corridors for BRT. There's a suggestion of potentially a position or part-time position at BMC to do cross-jurisdictional planning coordination. So this would be for projects that either cross jurisdictional boundaries or have impacts over jurisdictional boundaries. So this position would basically look at all of those different types of projects and make sure that there's good coordination with both of the local jurisdictional partners or multiple jurisdictional partners and state agencies. Another project that was of interest that also came out of an AMPO discussion was these driverless taxis and automated delivery vehicles. These are being implemented in a number of different cities, and we think it's just a matter of time before they start moving into the Baltimore region. So we think it's time to potentially look at making sure that our local jurisdictions and state agencies are ready for them, both from an infrastructure standpoint, but then also a regulatory standpoint. There's discussion of trying to enhance local transportation public engagement. We know each jurisdiction and agency has their own way of kind of spreading the word, utilizing social media, websites, other types of activities when you're doing individual projects. We could look at doing a survey of what everyone does, what's working, and then potentially try to augment some of these local public engagement activities. A lot of discussion around different safety items. There's discussion of a potential project around expanded safety audits. There's some great work being done down in Howard County where they bring in not only just the engineers and traffic engineers looking at these safety audits, but bringing other partners to the table as you're looking at these individual areas. Then there's a lot of discussions going on regarding the Vision Zero Commission with a recent presentation done at the BRTB. And then some discussion also about speed and how speed plays a role in safety. We're doing a project right now where we're trying to look at different types of data sources, but this would be an expanded discussion specifically about speed and safety. There's a household travel survey that is being discussed with the Maryland Department of Transportation. Again, the last one was done in 2018 and 19. This was pre-pandemic, so travel patterns have changed. So we're looking at, again, a potential partnership, and we might need to set aside some funding for that survey. One of the projects that potentially came out was a discussion on inland flood analysis. So again, FEMA maps are based mostly on, river flooding or stream flooding, but there's the untapped area of urban flooding or nuisance flooding that's taking up, becoming more prevalent, and this could potentially look at figuring ways to assist our DPWs and DOTs in trying to address those different areas. Coming out of the reorganization of MTA Commission or the 517 Commission, there are discussions about different types of authorities that are going around. We've looked a lot at some, that would handle the normal bus services and things like that, but there are discussions of rail authorities. And we could look at, what are some examples, how those are implemented, and different types of ways that they might be able to raise revenue to improve service. And then always the discussion about TOD and land use. So again, this is a quick preview of different topics. I think we're going to try to probably send around a survey to local members to see if you have ideas on what is being proposed here or different topics that you might want to discuss. And we'll, of course, bring that up at the January Technical Committee. We probably won't have funding to do all of these different studies, but we will want to prioritize kind of what are the different areas. So I think that's it for my slides. Regina, if you want to just flash to the last one in case anyone needs to get in contact with me, hopefully you have all of my contact information. I will turn it back to the chair and just see if there are any questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Okay.
Hearing none, moving on
hey,
to oh,
Angela,
I'm
I had a quick
sorry.
question. No, that's
Yes.
fine. That'd come off mute. Hey, Todd, a couple of questions here. So for the transportation land use connection grants, we were curious if they'd be done the intention is to be done the same way as this past fiscal year.
Again, we're always open to if there are suggestions for different ways. Are there specific timelines or dollar amounts of projects or selections that you might have recommendations for? You could either bring them up here or just get in contact with us separately and bring up your ideas.
Okay. And kind of, I guess, pivoting off of that, the cross-jurisdictional planning coordination topic that you brought up there, would that positions, or I guess if it is a position, support efforts towards those kind of grant programs and facilitating those to some degree? Because we find ourselves kind of shying away from projects that may have some cross-jurisdictional planning impacts in the sense that it would, of course, be increased resources and requirements from our end, given the small staff time that we have. Is that kind of where that idea is going towards, or is it something, or am I not understanding it?
I mean, that's great feedback. That is definitely something that position could do. What we were thinking about is things like traffic impact studies, where there's impacts across different jurisdictions, or major developments, or roadway or transit projects that extend beyond a jurisdictional boundary. Just making sure that someone is tracking these cross-jurisdictional projects. And is making sure all the partners, have all of the information and is kind of a single source that you could go to for these different types of projects. But, TLC projects that would potentially go across jurisdictional boundaries, definitely a good idea also. So thank you for that feedback.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, and that's not to say that we don't, we kind of push those aside, but just given the constraints on that, it's tough sometimes from our limited resources. So that's great, and we'll look forward to that survey you're sending around.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I will turn it back to the chair. Regina, I think we're done with the program. Thanks.
Angie.
Thank you. The next technical committee meeting will be virtual on Tuesday, January 6th. Is there any other business to come before the committee today? Hearing no other business, I ask for a motion to close the meeting.
Hartford County moves to close the meeting.
Thank you, Sam.
Baltimore City seconds.
Thank you, Sean. Have a wonderful holiday season, everyone.
You too. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.